Hey, good to see you. If you're a pilot or you want to be a pilot, one of the things you're going to have to adapt to is understanding how the airplane works. And that includes all the systems in the airplane. Electrical systems is a prime example. That stuff is not all that obvious to someone who doesn't have a fair amount of electrical training, but it can be simplified. For instance, take a look at this, the master switch. It's actually two switches split down the middle. We use it as a single switch, but in reality, one side controls the battery, one side controls the alternator. We have a lot of control over the systems if we understand how they work. Now, rather than making your head explode and get into all kinds of nitty-gritty and deep in the weeds and making you sorry you ever tuned into this channel, let's take a little field trip down to the hangar and take a look at the airplane electrical systems, because there's at least two, and make sure we have a basic understanding of it. When we see an airplane, it's usually all buttoned up, just like this one, ready to fly, which is fine most of the time, but if we want to learn how the systems work inside it, we kind of have to go to books and diagrams and schematics, and that can make it a little harder. As long as you're here watching this video, and I know you are, I can see you, why don't you click the like button and even go a step further and subscribe to the channel? I would personally appreciate it. I think we could be closer friends as a result. So let's take a basic look at the aircraft electrical systems in a way that's not boring, that you'll remember, and actually will help you both in your training and testing and in real life should you ever have an issue. There's actually two completely separate electrical systems in most airplanes. One of them involves the battery, which it gets the starter going. The other one involves this little gizmo with the orange wires going to it. That's the magneto. There are two magnetos on most airplane engines. That's the magical device that provides the power to the spark plugs that let your engine run. The magneto is the device that's driven by the engine, which was started by the starter. As the engine starts, the magneto begins to turn, generating electricity, which it feeds to the spark plugs. Two spark plugs per cylinder. There's an entirely separate electrical system just to keep the engine running. So if your battery dies or if your alternator goes out, the engine continues to run because you have a magneto here and a magneto here, each of them powering a complete set of spark plugs. The whole system is relatively simple. The battery powers the starter turns the engine turns the magneto provides power to the spark plugs, the engine fires and runs. Two different electrical systems working together to make the whole system work. Now, one of the weird little bonus points I'll share with you here is the magnetos really only produce power when they're spinning fairly rapidly, but as you know, when you start an airplane, the propeller turns fairly slowly. It's not enough to really get the magnetos going. So there's a part called the impulse coupling. It's a spring-loaded device that spins the magneto rapidly, even when the engine isn't running that fast. And you can tell it's working by just moving the propeller a little bit into a specific position where the impulse coupling fires. Listen. That's the impulse coupling. That spring spun up the system so that the mags are producing enough electricity to make the spark plugs fire. That's the basics of the aircraft electrical system. The battery and the starter, the alternator that takes off and feeds power for lights and radios after that, and the magnetos, which power the electrical system that runs the spark plugs and keeps your engine running even if your battery dies, even if your alternator fails. It's a pretty cool system. That's pretty much it. So if you can get into that little bit where you understand the basics of how the electrical system works, you're going to be a better, safer, more knowledgeable pilot. And let's face it, if you're better and safer and more knowledgeable, you're guaranteed to have more fun. Go do it. We'll see you back here next time.